I, a 36-year-old female, have been married to my husband Nate, a 40-year-old male, for the last 7 years. My stepdaughter Jessie, a 14-year-old female, is from Nate's first marriage. Nate's first wife passed away when Jessie was 3. In her final months, she recorded messages for Jessie. She put the audio on her old computer, on an old MP3 for Jessie, and on a couple of flash drives. Nate has backups, his late wife's parents have a backup, and so do her sister and brother. I was aware of the voice messages when Nate and I were still very new. He talked about them and how important they had become to Jessie, who was 5 when Nate and I met. He also told me he wasn't looking for a new mom or parent for Jessie. He wanted a partner to be more of a fun family member and support. This person could not force or push the relationship, that his late wife's shoes could not be filled. I agreed and told him that being a fun family member sounded great. Nate has been inconsistent about my role in Jessie's life since we married. Jessie doesn't want me to be her parent, but sometimes Nate does. There are times when she's having a bad day or she's sick, and if Nate's at work or not home, she doesn't come to me. She just plays the voice recordings of her mom. It makes me feel very useless because if Nate is around and stays home with her when she's sick, or if he's there when she's sad, she cuddles with him, in the past, when sick, or looks for comfort and reassurance from him. She still listens to her voice notes, but not as much, whereas she'll tell me she's fine. She has lied to my face and said nothing was wrong, and even if I could see that she wasn't, when I tried to offer some comfort, she'd brush me off and listen to the voice notes. But Nate and his family would complain when I wasn't staying home with her. I told him I felt useless being home with her, and he told me it's because I wasn't her parent and she didn't need me like him. Nate brought up concerns that after all these years, Jessie and I aren't close. We started marriage counseling to talk through everything. He said his biggest concern was the fact that he does not feel like I have made any progress in my relationship with Jessie and that I'm too hands-off. I said I am there for Jessie as much as she wants me to be, but I'm not forcing it like I was told. There are very few things Jessie will say yes to doing with me or coming to me with. Typically, she'll be fine coming to the store with me or asking me to drive her to the store. She's good at watching Disney movies with me or playing some video games with me. But she doesn't come to me with her problems, and when I offer help, she doesn't want it. I told him I don't really know what he expects, and that when I'm the only person available when she's not doing well, she turns to the voice recordings. Nate accused me of being jealous and said that bringing up the voice notes in marriage counseling was wrong and made it sound like I wanted to get rid of them. I never said that, but he told me they never needed to be mentioned. Am I the jerk? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot Nate accused me of being jealous and said that bringing up the voice notes in marriage counseling was wrong and made it sound like I wanted to get rid of them. I never said that, but he told me they never needed to be mentioned. In a counseling session, pretty much everything needs to be mentioned. Context is important, details are important, and when things are left out, the counselor can't help you. He's being incredibly unfair in his rules for you and your relationship with his daughter and put you in a tough spot. If Jessica isn't in counseling by herself to deal with the loss of her mother, she should be. She's clinging too hard to those recordings of her mom. Not that she should get rid of them, just not use them to the exclusion of the new potential support person in her life, you. Comment 2. Not the idiot. If you are speaking about your stepdaughter and her emotional health and her support or lack of support, the tapes have to be mentioned. She uses them to feel better and never comes to you when she feels vulnerable. Ask Nate during your next session what he thought your relationship with Jessica would look like when he told you to be the fun, not parental relative, and he has never encouraged Jessica to go to you with any problems or to even ask for a hug. Now for the update. I'm back with another update on this hell of a ride. Just over a month has gone by since the last therapy session. Not sure what I expected to change in that time, but spoiler alert, nothing much. So, around a month ago, Jessie had this school play. She had a minor role, but still, it was something. I thought maybe I'd get a chance to connect with her, since, she wasn't rolling her eyes at me from across the room. No such luck. Nate was sitting in the front row, cheering loudly for Jessie like he was watching the Super Bowl. I mean, I get it, she's his kid, but a little less enthusiasm for a minor role wouldn't unalive you, dude. The whole time Jessie was on stage, she didn't even look at me once. Not once. I was practically waving my arms in the air like I'm at a concert, and she just wasn't having it. After the play, I brought some flowers for her to celebrate her role, like a normal stepmom would do. She accepted them, but seemed like she'd rather be anywhere else. Like, I get it, I'm not your mom, but a little gratitude wouldn't hurt. After that, Nate came over to thank me for coming. Meanwhile, Jessie was already walking away to her friends like she couldn't get away fast enough. Real warm welcome. I overheard Nate talking to Jessie about spending more time together, and when I say overheard, I mean I was practically eavesdropping because I needed to hear something positive. Jessie rolled her eyes and said she was fine on her own. That stung a bit. Like, I get she's a teen and all, but could we at least try to act like we're not in a reality show? Then, Jessie's birthday was coming up, and I thought, what's a better way to connect than a surprise party? I told Nate, and he insisted that we include all of Jessie's friends and family. I mean, yeah, that's kind of the point of a party, but I was hoping for something more intimate. Jessie seemed annoyed by the idea of a party. She said she wanted a quiet day. I could feel my heart sinking, but I thought, no, we'll make this work. So I spent hours decorating, preparing food, and just putting love into this thing. On the day of the party, all Jessie wanted to do was stay in her room. I could feel the excitement draining out of me. Nate urged her to come down and celebrate, but she refused. Guests started arriving, and I felt this mix of excitement and frustration. During the party, Jessie finally came down but sat quietly on the couch. I tried to engage her in conversation, but she just shrugged like I was asking her to do calculus. Nate tried to lift the mood by cracking jokes, but Jessie was still in that I hate everyone mode. I noticed Jessie's friends whispering and giggling, and there was this divide that I could practically slice with a knife. After the guests left, Nate confronted Jessie about her behavior. Jessie snapped back, saying she didn't ask for a party and didn't want one. That hurt, I put my heart into that party. A week later, I found out Jessie's been spending time with this new friend. The thing is, this friend was someone who'd been at the birthday party, but was not on my radar before. I accidentally saw a group chat on Jessie's phone, which was a whole other can of worms, and that's how I found out about this new friend. I reached out to the friend's parent to learn more about their relationship, and the friend's parent mentioned a recent sleepover where Jessie seemed very comfortable. That comment hit me hard. At dinner, I tried to bond with Jessie while including her friend. I thought maybe a dinner party would be chill, so I went all out. I even made her favorite pasta. But Jessie seemed annoyed at the attention I was giving her friend. After dinner, she stormed to her room and slammed the door like she was in a punk band. I knocked on the door to talk, but she refused to open it. Nate intervened, expressing his concern about Jessie's behavior, and I just stood there like a statue, feeling everything. The next day, I decided to send Jessie a heartfelt message. I really tried to put my feelings into words because I figured a message would be less confrontational. She replied with a simple thanks, yet the distance still remained. That was a real morale unalived. Still, I planned a small outing with just Jessie. I was hoping for a fresh start, just the two of us. During the outing, Jessie finally opened up about feeling overshadowed by me. She said it felt like I was always in her space, and she just wanted to be her own person. I listened, and it felt like a bit of a breakthrough. She wanted me to back off, and I was willing to do that. I get it. She's 14, and she wants her own space. I just need to respect that. To answer a few questions, Jessie's late mother was very involved in her life, and her passing affected everyone deeply. I never wanted to replace her, and I've always respected her memory. With the new friend, it seems Jessie enjoys a different dynamic, which I understand but still makes me feel left out. Am I the idiot for telling my husband to stop letting his mother control our kids' lives? My husband, who is 34 years old, and I, who am 32 years old, have been together for 5 years and married for 1. He adopted my daughter from a previous relationship, who is 7 years old, and we have a son together who is 3 years old. We live directly next door to his mother, who is 52 years old, and stepfather, who is 49 years old. My husband and I both work very demanding jobs, but because I have more regular hours, I am responsible for picking up the kids at the end of the day. At the beginning of the year, my husband and his mother unilaterally decided to pull my kids out of the daycare they were attending because they didn't think it was safe. I still have yet to see any evidence that the daycare was unsafe, but they gave me the flexibility I needed to pick up my kids around 6 p.m. every night. So, my mother-in-law found a daycare, and because she is a real estate agent who owns her own brokerage, she took it upon herself to pick up my kids when the daycare closes at 4 p.m. She often asked to keep the kids overnight as well, which I'm happy to oblige because they also have a waterfront property and bring my kids there to go swimming and kayaking often. This past Tuesday, I was struggling to leave work on time and let my mother-in-law know that I was going to be late. Her response was, "I'm just going to keep them overnight. You picking them up this late is going to disturb their bedtime routine." I proceeded to call my husband and tell him how upset I was that my mother-in-law was keeping the kids without even asking me. I used the term hostage because she is extremely overbearing and controlling at times. My husband asked me what my alternative was to the current arrangement, and I suggested that the kids switch to a different daycare and school that is closer to my work so that I can pick them up at the end of the day. My husband then insinuated that I was doing this just to spite his mother, and that I needed to go see a doctor and get medicated. He then proceeded to conference call in his mother without telling me he was going to do that, so that I could tell her exactly how I feel. His mother was sobbing to me on the phone that she didn't mean to upset me or hurt my feelings, that she is easygoing, and if I have a problem with something, I should just tell her directly. By this point, it felt like I was getting ganged up on, so I let them both have it. I told them they were making all the parenting decisions without really involving me, that these were my kids, not her kids, and my husband was out of line for not supporting me and backing me up. My mother-in-law and I have not spoken since that interaction, and my husband and I are on very thin ice. I'm not going to insinuate that I didn't do anything wrong, because I know there are things that I could have done better and handled differently in the situation. But am I the wrong one for handling this the way I did? To add, I've had ongoing issues with my mother-in-law and her disrespect for boundaries. I trust her completely with my kids, and I am extremely grateful to have her around them, but she does not know when she's stepping over the line. She's cut my son's hair without asking, chastised me for feeding my kids SpaghettiOs, and she gives me tons of unsolicited parenting advice. When my son was first born, she would barge into my house unannounced and grab him. It's not just a one-time scenario. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Start recording all conversations. Keep all messages. All decisions about care for your children should be between you and your husband, only. Put them back in the daycare you feel comfortable with. It sounds like your mother-in-law is trying to raise your children. The fact that your husband insinuated you needed help is a big red flag in your relationship. If you plan to stay with him, I would seek couples counseling. Comment 2. The part that stuck in my mind was your husband immediately jumping to the fact that you need to be medicated. That is an extreme reaction to your concern. Then to immediately involve his mother. You are allowed to have a conversation with your husband without immediately involving his mother. I will give you a not the jerk, but cannot say the same about your husband. Now for the update, I'm back with the update. So, a few weeks after the last talk I had with my mother-in-law, my husband texted me about a family dinner at his parents' house for our daughter's birthday. Now, I'm not thrilled about going back there, but you know, it's my daughter's birthday, and I don't want to mess that up for her. So it is what it is. On the day of the dinner, my mother-in-law texts me to confirm the menu, and guess what? It's my least favorite dish. I mean, come on. So I tell my husband I'd rather skip that dish, and he just shrugs it off like whatever, saying his mom always cooks what she wants. I'm thinking, yeah, exactly. That's the problem. But whatever, right? We get there, and honestly, the vibe is just off. The atmosphere is so awkward. My mother-in-law is avoiding eye contact like I'm some kind of plague. The kids are all excited, running around like little maniacs, and the adults are just sitting at the table making small talk. It's just so weird. Then, my husband brings up this recent family trip they took to the waterfront property, talking about how fun it was for everyone. I'm just like, wow, really? Everyone except us, huh? My mother-in-law jumps in, saying we should plan more outings without me and my husband. I'm just sitting there trying not to lose it. It's like they want to exclude us on purpose. Dinner comes, and she starts talking about the daycare situation again, insisting the kids are safer with her. I just can't take it anymore. I tell her I've enrolled them in a new daycare closer to home. Her face goes red, and she accuses me of undermining her authority as a grandparent. Like, are you kidding me right now? My husband just sits there silent, which honestly just makes me more furious. After dinner, the kids open presents, and my mother-in-law gives them these lavish gifts, and I just roll my eyes. It's just so complicated now. The whole gift-giving thing is just a mess. As the night goes on, the tension is just building, and I'm like, screw it. I need to talk to her. So I find her in the kitchen and confront her privately. She gets all defensive, saying she just wants to help and keep the kids safe. I'm like, yeah, right. The whole thing escalates, and she calls me ungrateful. Then my husband walks in, surprised to see us arguing, and tries to play peacemaker. He says we need to talk about this, but I'm just over it. The mother-in-law ends the conversation abruptly, saying she needs to step outside for some fresh air. Like, sure you do. A few days later, my husband sends me a message saying his mom wants to talk to me. I'm just like, fine. We arrange to meet at a nearby coffee shop, and let me tell you, it feels tense but necessary. I walk in, and she's already there. It's just awkward silence for a minute before we start talking. During the meeting, she admits she's been feeling left out and didn't realize how her actions were affecting me. I mean, it's about time she figured that out. We start talking about how we can work together for the kids' well-being without stepping on each other's toes. We actually agree on a lot, which surprised me. We decide to have regular family meetings to discuss the kids and their needs. She even suggests a family outing to the waterfront property to strengthen our bond. For a second, I think she's lost it, but then I realize it might not be a bad idea. My husband is all for it, which honestly eases a lot of the tension between us. The family outing is scheduled for the following weekend, and the kids are just so excited. I can't blame them. The place is beautiful, and they love it. So the day of the outing comes, and we all head to the waterfront. Honestly, we had a great day filled with laughter and games. It was just nice to be out there and enjoy ourselves. My mother-in-law even praised my efforts in organizing the day, which honestly felt like a turning point. By the end of the day, we all agreed to communicate more openly moving forward. To answer a few questions, I want to clarify that my husband had no idea about the dinner's exclusion before he brought it up. His family often does things without considering us, and it's frustrating. Regarding the daycare, I enrolled them after discussing it with my husband, and he supported the decision. Am I the idiot for cooking for my niece when my sister ditched her all day? I received a call from my niece today saying her mom, my sister, 30 years old, had gone out to see a friend and hadn't returned for a few hours. This wasn't unusual. My sister tends to have impromptu meetings with friends, and she thinks that at 12 years old, my niece is old enough to stay alone for a few hours during the daytime. My niece hadn't eaten all day, though, so she called me. I tried to reach my sister via call and text, but she didn't answer, so I called my brother-in-law at work since I wanted permission to go to their place. He said I could go over and check on my niece. When I arrived, the house was a little messy, but my sister had a schedule, and I didn't want to interrupt it. I just washed the dishes I needed to cook. I didn't order takeout because my niece has some severe food allergies, and I didn't want to risk it while both her parents were out, so I cooked, knowing what to leave out. My brother-in-law came home hungry and since I'd made extra food, I heated some up for him and left the rest for my sister in case she wanted some. I then left as my brother-in-law was home, so I didn't have to watch over my niece. Later, my sister finally responded angrily to my texts, upset that I'd fed her daughter and husband and done chores in her house. She accused me of attempting to outdo her, and I explained that I wasn't trying to judge her or outdo her, but my niece hadn't eaten, and I wasn't going to deny my brother-in-law food in his own home. I apologized, but she said it was no excuse and told me to just leave things next time and not interfere. My dad thinks I did nothing wrong, but my mom said not to meddle in my sister's household. I have no ill intentions and see my brother-in-law as a big brother since he and my sister are high school sweethearts. There are no feelings or physical contact outside of piggyback rides that stopped when I turned 12 and congratulatory hugs on special occasions. I feel bad for making my sister angry, but I don't think I did anything wrong. Am I the antagonist? To add, as a commenter suggested, I'm adding more relevant information. There wasn't food in the house, only raw groceries, since my niece is allergic to a lot of processed or ready-made food, and she's not allowed to use the gas stove unsupervised. She called me since her mom was unreachable, and her dad isn't pleased when someone calls him while he's at work. Why her parents didn't leave things she could eat if they intended to leave her alone, I have no clue. I made extras with the intention of kind of meal prepping for my niece in case this happened again. I also sent my sister a follow-up text that I got permission from my brother-in-law to enter and keep my niece some company. She just didn't read it until later that day when she came home and found out what happened, since she said she switches her phone off when she's with friends. Now for an update. A lot of you think a 12-year-old should be perfectly self-sustaining. That's your opinion. But I was hoping the common consensus would be that when a child calls you in distress, you check on them and help, no matter what the issue is. It's a child. But as for the situation, my post was found by my brother-in-law, and he called to ask if I posted this. When I confirmed, he told me he read the comments that said my sister was acting suspiciously and was probably being unfaithful. It affected him badly, so he's going to have a very serious conversation with her and has hired a caretaker with medical training for my niece for the time being, in case there's a falling out with my sister, to help meal prep for her and be around while he's at work and my sister is out doing whatever, his words. That's it, though. I doubt my sister will say anything about this particular situation. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. Just because she is a neglectful parent doesn't mean that you should feel bad for helping out your niece, especially when she was left at home by herself with no food. You did the right thing. Comment 2. Not the idiot. It seems a bit like the 12-year-old reaching out for food was more about reaching out for company, but food was an easier thing to ask for, in my opinion. Now for the update. A couple of weeks passed since the last incident with my sister, and honestly, I was kinda hoping things would settle down, but no such luck. I got a call from my niece's school about issues with her attendance. Apparently, she had started skipping classes, which really got me worried. I decided to visit her at home after school to see what was going on. When I got to the house, I found my niece home alone, just sitting there scrolling through her phone. The house was still a mess, which showed that nothing had improved since my last visit. She told me that her mom was out again, leaving her to take care of herself. I offered to cook dinner for her again, and I suggested that we spend some time together. The next day, I picked my niece up and we went to a local library. While we were there, we bumped into my brother-in-law, who looked surprised to see us. He seemed really grateful for my involvement with their daughter. He mentioned that my sister had been going out more frequently and that she seemed really distant. A few days later, my sister came home late one night, and she looked visibly upset. I saw her arguing with my brother-in-law through the window. I could tell the argument was getting out of hand because my brother-in-law stormed out and slammed the door behind him. I confronted my sister about what was happening, and she accused me of interfering in her marriage and parenting. I tried to explain that I was just concerned for my niece's well-being, but she dismissed my concerns and told me not to come back. At this point, my niece started spending more time with me, often coming over for meals. One weekend, I took her to a nearby amusement park. While we were there, I ran into a family friend who had some gossip about my sister. The friend mentioned that my sister was seen with a group of new friends at local bars, which made me even more concerned. A week later, my brother-in-law contacted me and asked for a meeting. We met at a coffee shop, and he shared his concerns about my sister's behavior. He told me that he had found some messages on my sister's phone that suggested she was hiding something. I agreed to help him by keeping an eye on my sister from a distance. Things got even more complicated as my brother-in-law started considering separation from my sister. During a family dinner, my brother-in-law confronted my sister about her new friends. I watched as the family dynamics fell apart more at the dinner table. My brother-in-law decided to take a break from the relationship and arranged for my niece to stay with me. I agreed because I wanted to provide some stability for her during this mess. Things escalated when my sister abruptly left home one day, and my brother-in-law was frantic. He called me in a panic, saying he couldn't find her. But now I'm stuck in the middle of all this, trying to make sense of everything while keeping my niece safe and sound. Edit. My sister eventually returned the next day, claiming she was with friends. My brother-in-law is still suspicious. My parents are worried about my niece. I'm trying to get her into counseling. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.